You're standing in a crowded subway car. A man 2 feet away starts coughing violently, then slumps against the pole. You glance at him. You glance at the other passengers. Nobody moves. So you don't move either. But the real answer for why you just froze is far stranger than simple cruelty. It reaches back through one murdered woman, one famous experiment, and 300,000 years of survival wiring buried in your brain. Her name was Kitty Genovese. In March of 1964, she was attacked outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. The attack lasted over half an hour. Newspapers reported that dozens of neighbors heard her cries and did nothing. The story shocked the country. How could so many people listen to a woman being murdered and not even pick up a phone? Two psychologists wanted to know the answer. Their names were John Darley and Bibb Latané. In 1968, they ran an experiment that would change how we understand human behavior forever. They placed participants in separate rooms, told them they were having a group discussion over an intercom, and then staged a fake emergency. One actor, playing another participant, pretended to have a seizure live over the speaker. Here's where it gets strange. When participants believed they were the only other person who could hear the emergency, 85% of them left the room to help. Almost everyone. But when participants believed 4 other people could also hear the emergency, that number dropped to just 31%. Same emergency, same sounds of distress, wildly different response. Darley and Latané called this diffusion of responsibility. When more people are present, each individual feels less personally obligated to act. Somebody else will handle it. Somebody else probably already called for help. Somebody else is more qualified than me. Your brain runs through this calculation in milliseconds, and you're not even aware it's happening. But there's a second mechanism at work, and it's even sneakier. It's called social referencing. Before you act in an ambiguous situation, your brain automatically scans the people around you for cues. Are they alarmed? Are they calm? If everyone else looks relaxed, your brain concludes the situation must not be that serious, even if your gut is screaming otherwise. Think about what this means. A room full of frozen people doesn't look frozen to each other. It looks calm. Each person sees everyone else's outward stillness and reads it as evidence that nothing is wrong. Meanwhile, every single person in that room might be feeling the exact same internal alarm. A room full of individually panicking people can look, from the outside, like a room full of people who are completely fine. Why would evolution wire your brain this way? To understand that, you have to go back further than New York City, further than psychology labs. You have to go back to the environment your brain was actually built for, which is small hunter-gatherer groups of maybe 30 to 50 people where everyone knew everyone and where social standing determined whether you ate that week. In that world, reading the group correctly wasn't optional. It was survival. If the group sensed a predator and froze, freezing with them kept you alive. If you ran when everyone else stayed still, you might draw the predator's attention directly to yourself. Matching the group's emotional state, staying calm when they're calm, alarmed when they're alarmed, was a deeply adaptive strategy refined over hundreds of thousands of years. There's also the question of social cost. In a small group you'd live with for the rest of your life, standing out had consequences. Acting alone, being the one who panics, the one who makes a scene, the one who's wrong about the threat, that person's reputation suffered. And reputation, in a hunter-gatherer band, was almost as valuable as food. Researchers studying modern foraging societies, including work by anthropologist Christopher Bohm, have documented just how powerfully these small groups police behavior that draws unwanted attention to an individual. So your brain inherited 2 overlapping rules. Rule 1. Spread responsibility across the group so no individual bears the full weight of acting alone. Rule 2. Calibrate your emotional response to match everyone else's, because the group's collective read of a situation has historically been more reliable than your own. These rules worked beautifully for the vast majority of human history. They still work in many situations today. The problem is the scale. Your brain was calibrated for groups of dozens. It was never calibrated for crowds of hundreds, for cities of millions, for situations where the group reading the room is made up entirely of strangers who have no relationship to you and no shared history. In a band of 40 people, if something is wrong, someone you know and trust will almost certainly react, and you'll see it immediately. In a subway car of 80 strangers, the social bonds that made group reading reliable simply aren't there. Everyone is performing the same calm stranger mask. Everyone is reading everyone else's mask as the truth. There's a more recent body of research that adds another layer to this. Psychologist Bibb Latané continued studying this phenomenon for decades, and later work expanded it beyond emergencies entirely. The bystander effect doesn't just apply to seizures and crimes, it applies to anything where a group needs to take action and no single person feels singled out to be the one who does it. Think about the last time you were in a meeting where something was clearly going wrong with a project and everyone in the room could feel it, but nobody said anything. Think about a group chat where someone says something hurtful and you watch the message just sit there, unanswered, while you assume someone else will address it. Think about walking past litter, past a person who looks lost and confused, past a colleague who seems off. Your brain runs the same two calculations every time. Is someone else more responsible than me? And does everyone else seem unbothered? Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The bystander effect isn't a character flaw that only applies to bad people in extreme situations. It's a default setting. It activates in good people, kind people, people who would absolutely help if they were the only ones around. The mechanism doesn't care about your values. It cares about how many other humans are visible in your immediate environment. And once you know this, something interesting happens. Researchers have found that simply teaching people about the bystander effect measurably increases the likelihood that they'll intervene in future situations. Just knowing the mechanism exists seems to partially override it. Some studies on helping behavior suggest that the moment you consciously recognize, wait, this might be diffusion of responsibility happening right now, the automatic calculation gets interrupted long enough for a different kind of thinking to take over. There's also a simple, almost absurdly effective countermeasure that emergency responders are trained to use. If you ever need help in a crowd, don't shout, "Somebody help me." Point at one specific person. Say their description out loud. You in the blue jacket, call an ambulance. The moment one person is singled out, the diffusion collapses. Responsibility stops being distributed across the crowd and lands entirely on one set of shoulders. That person almost always acts. This single piece of information, that responsibility needs to be assigned rather than assumed, is one of the most practical pieces of psychology you will ever carry with you. It works in emergencies. It works in offices. It works in families. Whenever a task or a problem is left to the group, it often belongs to no one. The moment it's assigned to someone, it becomes real. So think back to that subway car. The man slumping against the pole. Every person in that car who froze wasn't choosing not to care. They were running calculations written into their brain long before subways existed, before cities existed, before written language existed. Calculations that once kept small bands of humans alive by keeping individuals from acting rashly and alone. The tragedy isn't that people are cruel. The tragedy is that an entire car full of people can each be feeling exactly the same flicker of concern, each one waiting for someone else to move first, each one reading everyone else's stillness as permission to stay still themselves. 30 separate people, 30 separate hesitations, all canceling each other out into a single, silent, moving train car. Next time you're in a group and something feels off and nobody else seems to be reacting, remember that their stillness might be a mirror of your own. The next time you walk into a room and sense something is wrong but say nothing because surely someone else will say it first, remember that somewhere across that same room, someone else might be having the exact same thought about you. The real answer for why nobody moved was never that nobody cared. It was that everybody was waiting for everybody else to move first.